This video is sponsored by Squarespace. You know what's powerful? Websites. They can be anything, a place to learn, a place to meet people, or a place to find something to buy. No matter what though, for people who want to create, having a website is a must. And that's why I'm excited about Squarespace. So excited, in fact, that I made my own website using Squarespace to host my information on. Kind of like an online resume of sorts. And listen, if I can do it, anyone can. They have tons of templates to work off of and customize to your heart's content. And you can even host your videos on your own site to remonetize them or list your products with a few simple clicks. And keep track of everything with their intuitive analytics. If you're at all interested in having a website of your own, I highly recommend checking out squarespace.com and building your own website with their free trial. And when you're happy with it, go to squarespace.com/bandit to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. So what are you waiting for, fellow website owner? And now on to the video. For over 3 years, the only thing we actually knew about the sequel to Breath of the Wild was the fact that it was in development. There was so much that we didn't know about the game that it was that very essence of unknowing that spread across the fanbase and gave rise to a lot of new YouTube channels that made videos about the sequel, with the humble yours truly being one of them. But in a way, I feel like all of that changed this week. Because on Tuesday, we didn't get another vague trailer that somehow reveals a lot but at the same time reveals nothing at all. We instead got our first actual look at the gameplay in Tears of the Kingdom. Yes, it does look similar to Breath of the Wild in many ways, but it's also completely new in a lot of ways too. Oh yeah, and it also confirmed the Zonai's importance in the story for the first time, so you know, that's cool. But the biggest takeaway from the gameplay spot, the part that stuck out to me the most, was the showcase of Link's new abilities. Fuse is one of the wildest simple concepts that I've ever seen realized in a video game, which kind of seems to be Zelda's calling card these days, like when they said, hey, what if Link could climb in Breath of the Wild? Boom, mind-blowing. Ascend, or as I like to call it, rock swim, makes me very excited for all the new dungeon crawling possibilities. And Ultra Hand, aka Sticky Fingers, is insane and definitely not going to lead to any raunchy creations from the fanbase. What's this? Someone already conceptualized a phallicopter. Oh, wonderful. But the ability that stuck out to me the most was the first one that was also shown off in a previous trailer, the one called Recall. Not only is the concept cool because it essentially turns Link into Doctor Strange, which also opens up an insane amount of possibilities for gameplay, but its icon, that little kanji looking symbol in the top left when it's being used, is also present on Link's new Zonai hand when he uses it. This is important, and you want to know why? Because if you'll recall, when Aonuma announced the infamous delay to Tears of the Kingdom last year, we were given another little bitty shot of Link facing some glowing yellow orb and holding out the mangled Master Sword in its direction. And if you look closely, you can see that not only is his hand glowing yellow, which it does when using the recall ability, but the symbol on his hand is straight up also the recall symbol, proving that that's what he's doing to the Master Sword. It's a bit hard to see, but here, let me use the magical powers of Premiere Pro's 3D image manipulation to help with the visual. See, every Zelda fan out there automatically assumed that whatever Link is doing here has got to be in some way repairing the Master Sword. I mean, we even see the repaired tip of the Master Sword in Tears of the Kingdom's logo, repaired with the same blue-green Zonai color, might I add, which implies that it will be a Zonai power that repairs it. With this in mind, I'm about 98% certain that Link is recalling whatever this golden orb is into the Master Sword, which glows in response. The question is, what is that golden orb and how is it connected to the rest of the Sky Islands, or Skyrule as I like to call them? Well, keep in mind, this is all just my speculation because spoiler alert, the game isn't actually out yet. But I wanted to cover a few possibilities for what this recalling method might mean for the Master Sword and even Skyrule as a whole. Something that's important to note is the fact that none of the islands of Skyrule are present in the sky before Ganondorf resurrects. This is made apparent in 2 of the game's trailers. The first one, which straight up shows Hyrule without a Skyrule as the castle is lifting, and the second one, which again shows no floating islands just after the castle has been lifted into the air. This implies to me that the appearance of Skyrule's many islands is going to be directly related to whatever is happening here. And there are a bunch of things happening here. Zelda's falling and who knows where she's gonna land, Ganondorf's cracking back to life, and a huge tendril of Ultra Malice shoots out towards Link, who is wielding the Master Sword, which has been corrupted by Malice. There are a lot of moving pieces here, all of which are enough to merit hours upon hours of speculation in and of themselves. But for the purposes of explaining Recall and the Master Sword, we'll focus on what happens to the Master Sword. In the first place, the Master Sword being being corrupted is extremely strange and shouldn't actually be possible. From its conception, way back in the first days of Skyward Sword, speaking in terms of lore here, it has always been the blade of evil's bane. It is so allergic to darkness and evil powers in general that it can even oppose the power of the Triforce itself when it's used for evil, like when it cleansed Link's dark curse in Twilight Princess, or when it successfully killed a Triforce-empowered individual, also in Twilight Princess. The Triforce may be omnipotent, but even it has to answer to the sheer righteous power of the Master Sword. That being said, it's been corrupted. And not just corrupted, but broken into pieces. As far as what could even be able to do this to the Master Sword, that's another topic for another day, which might not come before the release of the game since it's coming pretty soon now. Or maybe it will, and you should probably be subscribed to the channel just in case it does. Hint, hint. For this video though, I'd like to present two thoughts about what the glowing orbs might be that Link recalls into the blade, and where all the Skyrule Islands might have come from. And let's start with that first one. Since the Master Sword is clearly missing some length, the question is, where are its pieces that have been broken off? Well, since Link is recalling this glowing orb into the blade, what if the orb is a piece of the blade that was broken off? The sword does look discolored and has a bunch of holes in it, which could mean that the pieces that have broken off of it have instead been eaten away, like in some sort of acid, but perhaps that doesn't actually matter. Perhaps the broken pieces of the Master Sword are immaterial, and are instead more essences of its righteous power, like this golden orb sitting in front of Link, and once recalled into the blade will slowly but surely rebuild it and restore it to its former glory, and then some perhaps. The second possibility about the islands' appearance would be, what if Skyrule is the Sacred Realm? Now, hear me out. I know that this idea isn't new by any means. I mean, people were noticing the scarily accurate similarities between the islands of Skyrule and this particular depiction of the Sacred Realm from A Link to the Past right off the bat, which, by the way, is also known as the Golden Land. And with Aonuma directly saying just this week that these golden yellow trees are only present on the Sky Islands, the possibility of Skyrule being the Golden Land just skyrocketed. No pun intended. Okay, maybe a little pun intended. Some of the islands do appear to have tree roots growing along the edges, which implies some of them might have lifted off of the ground. But that doesn't necessarily discredit the Sacred Realm theory, since we know the Sacred Realm is a copy of our realm, hence the Dark World in A Link to the Past, which is the corrupted Sacred Realm and mirrors our own. But okay, before I go down rabbit holes of speculation about how the Zonai fit into all of this and whatnot, let's dial it back to the Master Sword. What connects the sword to the islands? Well, recall once again with me, if you will, just how many times the Master Sword has led to the opening of another land or area or power in the series. In Ocarina of Time, the Master Sword opened the way to the Sacred Realm, which was proven by the word of Rauru, and for those of you who know how Rauru is significant here, I'll give you a virtual wink. Although we've never been directly shown the physical aspect of the Master Sword being the key, we still know it is, or was at least. In the Wind Waker, the Master Sword unlocks Hyrule out of its stasis, as well as Ganondorf's full power. And in Twilight Princess, it unlocks the path into the Temple of Light, the Temple of Time dungeon. So what if this breaking of the Master Sword in Tears of the Kingdom somehow unlocks Skyrule, which Link must explore and traverse in order to find the broken essences of the Blade of Evil's Bane and recall them back into the sword, with the help of the Zonai and their mysterious big lady. You gotta admit, it's possible and would actually make a ton of sense, and something similar already happened with piecing the Triforce of Courage back together in the Wind Waker. But what do you think? Are these orbs the broken shards of the Master Sword? Are the islands of Skyrule unlocked after the blade's corruption, or is it something else entirely? Let me know in the comments below, and thank you so much for watching. If you'd be so kind, please consider leaving a like on the video if you like talking about Tears of the Kingdom, and subscribe if you haven't already to stick around for much more Tears of the Kingdom coverage to come. Huge thanks as always to my bandit crew, of which I have the name of Alex Yvette S to welcome. You guys make my day every day, and I cannot thank you enough. That's all I've got for this one, so be sure to follow me on my socials, and I'll see you next time. This is Bandit, signing out. Peace!